I knew that I couldn't grow unless I started to give away what I know to some people for free. And that changed everything for me.
Welcome to the Unstoppables, where we take those intentions, those ideas you have, and turn them into dollars. Those dollars that make your dreams come true, those lifestyle options that you can cash when you take that intent and you turn it into reality. What better place to learn from than from those people who have done what you intend to do, who are doing what you want to do, who have climbed from adversity, who are now climbing another mountain that is success. And along the way, there's going to be more adversity. You can learn from the people on this show, The Unstoppables. And today, my special guest is no exception. We'll just call him Credit Carl or Carl Scarmuzza. Carl, welcome to the show.
That's right on the money with the Scaramuzza. Thanks for having me, Bill. It's a pleasure.
First of all, I got to start with this because credibility is everything, and we're going to get there fast. Tell me about the 800 Club, that hat you have on.
The exclusive 800 Club. This is a good conversation piece for a bunch of events that I was at. I walked out of there. People said, how do I get that hat? First of all, what does it mean? And how do I get it? But this is something that you want to aspire, a club that you want to be in, like an exclusive country club, right? It's about taking your credit scores and getting them above that 800 number. Scores range from 300 up to 850. I've only seen one 842 in my life. So you want to be in that 800 club because it's going to open a lot of doors if you have an 800 plus personal credit score.
And that is vital. I was in the research for the show. I'm going to throw a number at you, a big number, that in 2017, credit card debt, $927 billion. Now, I can't even get my arms around that number. $927 billion. So that was a 5% increase over the last year. $927 billion. How important is it? Because credit card debt right now, the balance on an average is $15,000. And if you own a house, your debt load's about $134K. So tell me how important it is to keep that credit score climbing.
Did you use the word billion?
Yeah. I don't know how many zeros are in there, Carl. But
I can't wrap my head around.
Why don't you look at your bank account and tell me?
Yeah, I can't wrap my head around that number either, but that sounds right. I'm not a stat guy. The $15,000 sounds right. A lot of people get in that $15,000 personal credit card debt number and panic sets in. It's definitely this credit card trap. But, Bill, I coach a lot of younger kids. They come on my live coaching show. And I like to teach people from a very young age the credit card trap, how to avoid getting $15,000 in credit card debt, right? Is if you can't pay a credit card off the next day, you shouldn't be spending it. That's the trap that you need to avoid. So in its simplest form, when you first get that credit card, right? Even if it was something you were going to go spend some gas or something that you had cash, use the credit card and then pay the credit card off the next day so you establish some good habits. That's how you avoid that trap of, think about it, right? What is it? I don't even know, August, right? So if you spent money on your credit card this month, then all of a sudden the minimum payment shows up in September and you go, I'm just going to wait. And then all of a sudden it's Christmas. And now you carried that debt and it costs you more money with interest, and now it's January. And now you don't have any money in January. You're waiting until Feb. So you don't pay any credit cards that you start spending money on now until you get your tax refund at the beginning of next year. So don't get caught up in that trap. Only spend what you can pay the next day if you're young, right? Me, Bill, I'm fearless. I'm not afraid of debt. You and I had this conversation earlier. I'm okay with where I'm at in my career, owing people money and having debt because I continue to bet on myself. So it really depends on where you're at in your life.
I love that because it takes discipline and habit to think, can I pay this the next day? Can I? And if I can't, then I shouldn't be buying this because I really can't afford to buy it because it's going to mess up my credit. Because you want to build those credit scores when you're young so you can play with money when you're older. I like that philosophy.
100%.
I love it. Carl, should I pay off my debt? Let's say I have some credit card debt. Should I take a loan and pay off that debt?
Yeah, yes, you should, right? I mean, unless it's 0%, like there's some great, like part of the reason you want to get into this 800 club is you start to get free money. So that answer lies in what rate are you paying? If somebody offers you a credit card at 0% for 24 months, there's no reason to panic about it. That sounds like a really good deal, and it's okay to, continue with that credit card company. But if the rate's really high and you can get yourself out of that and consolidate it into a second mortgage or guess what, Bill? It's very difficult to get a personal loan to pick up your credit card debt and pay it off. Like, good luck. Personal, it's so much easier to get a credit card than it is to get a personal loan. Very difficult. So a lot of people have that fantasy of, I'm going to just consolidate. Well, you don't have any equity or you don't have a home. You're renting, okay? And good luck walking into TD Bank and trying to get a personal loan for $15,000. Very difficult because it's not secured. It's unsecured. So it's very difficult to accomplish.
Well, tell me about your background. Now, you're in Philadelphia now. That's where you live, right? You're in Philadelphia?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Tell me how you got into this credit card game, because I'm going to call it a game, and how you developed your blueprint for escaping credit card debt.
Well, I have 152 IQ, so I'm pretty much a genius.
Why did you make me feel small all of a sudden? Why did, when I have to get by with my style, not my substance, but all of a sudden you've shed the spotlight on my lack of substance by denigrating my own IQ because I'm comparing it. Anyway, I'm still stuck on 152. Go ahead.
No, I'm totally kidding. My IQ is definitely in the low hundreds. So total joke, right? So I learned, Bill.
Feel better now. Well, thank you.
Good. I learned through trial and error. Like when I first got into this credit repair business, I was partnered up with another guy. And I remember being so scared because people would come into the office with pages of like response letters and the scores went down 100 points. And you're like, I didn't really know how to answer that. Like a mad customer, they paid us up front and their scores went down 100 points. I go, this is a racket. Like, this is not a business that I want to be in. So that was my first experience with credit repair. Was not a good one. And then eventually what happened was I got my wife involved, who's my better half, 100%. She left the mortgage business and she came over to work for the credit repair company I was partnered up with. And we actually started to figure it out. She goes, I know what's moving the scores up. I know what's moving them down. So it was like trial and error of what not to do because no one has the fight. Like there's an algorithm. Credit is a game, okay? But there's also an algorithm. There's a science behind how your scores move up and down. If anyone tells you that they know the science or the algorithm, they're full of it. That's why experience in this credit repair business is invaluable. If you're taking advice from someone that, I won't name a gigantic name that has a credit course out there, but one of the kids he works with is 20 years old. How much could you know about credit at 20 years old that you're coaching 40-year-olds? I call BS on that. So the experience of the trial and error of helping at this point in my life, I've looked at, I think the number is like 55,000 credit reports I've looked at. I've had thousands of clients go through our program. And we learned along the way what moves the scores up. And it's very personalized for each person. It's different for everyone.
So I want to avail myself of your coaching because I want to learn what that algorithm is. I want to learn about the science that you paid for in intellectual capital and work in looking at 55,000 credit reports. So how do I find you to do that?
How does someone get a hold of me to do that? Well, creditblueprint.net, that's the website. But I'm very active on Instagram. Instagram's credit.carl. I do a live show in the morning. It's the Daily 5. People drop a question on there. I answer it for free because I definitely believe that you have to give in order to get and receive. So I give as much free information as possible on that Instagram account.
And I'll say this about your Instagram account. I've been following you since I was on your show. And you do come from a place of abundance, not a place of scarcity, where you are sharing information, but your content is really, really good. So there's a ton of noise on there. There's a ton of look at me stuff. I know I used to be guilty of that until the people in this room stopped me, okay? But it's always like, look at my shit, right? But your stuff is very, very impactful. It's got a point to it. You deliver it in a good way. I'm not patronizing you just because your IQ is higher than me. I should be cutting you down. But I really, really do think people should follow that Instagram lead with you because it's great. I do mean that.
And that's something that was learned. So first of all, I appreciate that compliment. Thank you, Bill. That means a lot coming from you. So I was a fan and knew you before you knew me. So much appreciated. But that was something that was learned for a long time on social media. You were not going to get me to tell you anything about, and sorry, I'm going like this, but I'm Italian. You were not going to get me to tell you anything for free about your credit. You were going to have to pay me. And then everything kind of changed. I knew that I couldn't grow unless I started to give away what I know to some people for free. And that changed everything for me,
It does. Then that's a total, you know what? That's a mindset and a shift. And if you make that shift, if you come from that place of sharing, things happen because nothing can happen unless you serve others. That's what we do. You're in the service of others. And to give stuff away, I've seen it bounce back to me in tenfold. So you're 100% Italian?
No, I'm only 50%. The other 50%'s Irish.
So I'm 50% Italian, 50% Croatian. I knew there was a connection in why I liked you. There it is. It's not just your fancy dress and the cool hat.
I had a fire. My dad was 5'5" Italian guy. This guy would spit on you, choke you. If you were 6'8", he'd jump on your back, try to poke an eye out. So this is the guy that raised my parents left when I was like 10 years old. My mom went one way. She said, "Look, you choose. You're either going with your mom or your dad." I was 10 years old. I chose my dad. My brothers followed me along. And this is the guy that raised me, this little Italian 5'5" guy. Bill, fearless. I mean, and quick too. Like if there was anything going down, like for me, sometimes I need a minute to go, what did that guy just say? But he was quick to jump on you and fight you. So I learned that from him.
That's where you got it. And that's where you got the fight because, you so much of that formative upbringing anchors you in not only in values, but in being tough because it takes so much. I see this today. There is a lack of resilience, of mental toughness, of the ability to fight through something, to see a problem for what it is, call it effing problem, and make it an opportunity. It's just so many people just run from it. So what you're saying is a lot about
the word challenge, right? People use that word problem, and I'm going through this with my wife as my company's growing, right? And we're like, well, they're just bigger problems, right? Like, well, they're not. I don't like that word. I like the word challenge. But going back to my dad, he taught me to run towards fear because I really got, I didn't get bullied. I just a lot of people I'd probably smack around if I had to go back to high school again. But, he just taught me to run towards fear. Like he never put professional athletes up on a pedestal. He never put anyone that made $100 million up on a pedestal. And that allowed me to be in conversations with people that are operating 100 times ahead of me or above me, in front of me and go, all right, well, I'm not putting you up on a pedestal. I want to know what you know. What do you know? So
I might be the anti-celebrity. You might be another card-carrying member of the anti-celebrity club because I don't believe that intellect and ability or any more worth to suck the air off this planet belongs to people in positions of power, assumed authority, degree, or celebrity. I don't. I think if you want to know how stupid most of them are, read the New York Post. That's what I do every morning. This first thing, well, it's got to be accurate. It's like the Inquirer, right? So, just read about how stupid and what people do and what they say, and you can't unwind most of that shit. So I'm with you on that. Hey, Carl, if you were going to do this, and you will always, I believe, by getting to know you, you're going to do this on your own terms no matter what. How would Carl define success? Your terms, not somebody else's.
Oh, that's such a fantastic question. I don't know if I have an answer for that a couple of years ago, but success to me is maxing out, living my life to my potential. Like I'm on this quest to be like the greatest version of myself. I'm always growing. That's success to me, and everything else will fall into place. Bill, if you asked me that question like a couple of years ago, I was really motivated by money. That really I need to make a lot of money, and that defined who I was. And now I'm 40 and I feel like I'm on a quest. How do I be health-wise, physically, my job, my business, my wife, my family, spiritually? How do I be the best version of myself? And then I'm successful. I'm winning, right?
It's one of the best definitions I've heard, and I've done hundreds of shows. If you don't count Sirius Radio, which we could be, well, 102 shows, but maybe that's some good shows. The greatest version of yourself, and there you go, because you're not using that relative scale of comparison. It's a zero-sum game. I got to have more money than anyone. Well, Warren Buffett's always going to trump you or Bill Gates, so you lost. But the greatest version of yourself, you're playing against yourself, and you're also playing within those four pillars of the physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual growth that you inspire and that you keep moving forward. I love that, Carl. I really do.
I learned that from John Wooden, right? I'm a big John Wooden fan, which I learned about John Wooden from my dad and all the championships, and I read his books, and I'm like, this guy tried to max. How do you at the end of the game, did you do the best that you could? And then whether you won or lost, it doesn't really matter. I outworked that person. I gave it all. And I look at life that way, which is,
you're right.
That's success to me.
I'm always looking for a connection, and I found it with you again, because John Wooden, believe it or not, went to Purdue for his undergrad. He's in the Purdue Hall of Fame, and someone else went there but didn't make the Hall of Fame, and he's talking with you right now. So there's the difference right there. Wooditch, one made the Hall of Fame, one didn't. One could shoot a basketball, one couldn't. There you go. He's willing to bet on himself. He bets on himself because he's disciplined and he's resilient. He's tough. He's tough, and he's 50% Italian, but he punches really, really hard, just like an Italian. He doesn't see a problem. He sees a challenge, and he steps into, actually runs toward fear. He's Credit Carl, and he's my guest, and he is my friend on the Unstoppables. Carl, what do you consider your biggest failure? What did you learn from it?
Well, I don't live life with any regrets. Failures. I love this question, too. You're going to
take these questions, put them on your show, aren't you? And you're going to ask me, and I'm going to be all flummoxed.
I'm going to show you next time you come on my show. So I would say that not betting on myself early on. I got people involved, and I always felt like in order for me to grow my business, that I needed someone involved with my business that had money and had credit and that had been there before. Like, it was a lack of confidence in myself early on, because I was a guy who almost flunked out of high school and went 1 year to college, and I'm like, well, I don't know anything about business. So that tripped up my progress. I feel like I'd be 5 years further along right now if I would have just done it on my own, learned quickly, learned from the mistakes, and then just went from there and built, instead of like so many wasted conversations I had, Bill, about an ex-business partner and how do we get him out, what's he doing that he wasn't supposed to be doing, and what he promised me. It's just wasted energy when I should have just did it myself.
Yes, wasted energy. And you learn from it early. And the one thing that I learned in writing 2 books, and the second one's actually with the publisher now, is that the people have regret for things that they didn't do more so than things they did do. So you want to live your life the way you're living your life, aware that you don't want to have regret. That so much shit is wasted energy talking about what's going to happen and what you're going to do while someone else is already doing it, and you end up never doing it anyway because you step away from fear. So you stepping into fear, hitting that shit head on, being able to work with your wife, man, that's a checkbox. But being able to do that and learn the science of helping people, a real algorithm that can really share and help, that's some great stuff right there, my friend.
Hey man, I almost don't want to answer that question when you ask about regret. I almost go, there's no regret, because it was all a learning experience to get me to where I'm at right now, that I can look back on and go, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now unless I didn't learn that stuff. I needed to learn the hard way. I just did, so.
Carl, the Greek gods lived on Mount Olympus, and they say if you want to be great like a Greek god, take every step toward Mount Olympus. Don't be wavering in your path. Stay on the direction. The great ones, and you're following the path. I know you want to know you're setting your own, but the great ones on this show have a really hard time with that question because they don't consider failure to be failure. They can just say, well, I don't really know how to get my arms around that. That's just part of the game. That's just a setback. That's just the bargain that success requires. You're in the same pantheon, my friend. You are in the same pantheon.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Now I'm going to throw my fastball at you. I'm going to tell you it's a fastball. It's coming to you, okay?
Get my glove?
You better get it. Get your bat if you want. What is you only get one. Think on this. What is your defining moment? What is it that made you at this point? One thing.
Touching other people's lives, helping people.
And getting the response from those people, I assume.
Seeing the impact on their lives, because, you know, you start helping people and then you don't there's no reciprocation. Like when I first started really helping people with credit, I was like, how come I got no testimonials for like the first couple of years. I was like, what the hell's going on? And then what happens is slowly they start to see that it's like a house of cards, right? And then they go, you know what? 2 years ago, you got my personal score to this number, which led me to buy my second investment property. And then I started my business and look at me now. And it took 2 years to get that. So that defining moment was like, I know I'm helping people, and it's great to hear from them, and it's great to see their success stories. And it's part of the thing that drives me.
And one of the things you talked about on your show is the levels, where it's what level? 5, 6, 7 levels. How do people increase? Give me some takeaways here and some nuggets. How do they increase their credit by the levels you talked about?
You see why my dad's a better fighter? Hold on, I got to go back a second. You're asking me for a defining moment, and like I told you, in 2 seconds, my dad would hit you with a right punch, okay? It takes me a minute, and then I go, well, I don't like that way that guy's talking to me. I don't think I have a defining moment. Not yet. It hasn't happened.
Backtracking on a great answer.
God, it hasn't happened yet.
You got a home run, now you're backtracking on it. Okay, you haven't got your defining moment yet. Well, that's a bullshit response.
It's not happened yet. All right, so let's go back to your question.
Okay.
Right? You got a 600 score, right? I mean, scores range, we talked about this earlier. They go from 300 all the way up to 850. This is FICO scores, not Vantage scores like those free scores that you see online, right? So if you have like a 500 or below, it's pretty much unusable. There's nothing you can do with below 500. And then you start to get into that 600 number. And that's where you can start to get maybe an asset, right? You get your first asset. You get a primary residence. A 600 score could probably help you land the job that you want, could probably get an apartment in your own name. So it's like the beginning stages of starting to borrow other people's money, all right? Now, the 700 club starts to get fun. The 700 club is where you get access to free money, 0%, right? That's what you want. You want that free money. Like, how do you get people to finance it at 0%? That starts in the 700 score range. And then that 700 range is like where you get personal toys. You want a boat, you want a Ferrari, you want the nicest clothes, watches. That's where you start to get personal toys. And don't lie to yourself out there. You need that stuff, okay? I like that stuff makes me smile. It makes me feel good about myself. So it's like for a long time, I didn't want to talk about it, but the personal toys, you need them along their journey. They're like motivational drivers, right? Like, how do you know what it's like to be rich or wealthy until you've been behind the wheel of a Ferrari Italia or, you know, shopped on Rodeo Drive? How do you know? So that's the 700 club. And then the 800 club, right? When you get into the 800 score, that's where the rich get richer. That's how wealthy people leverage that score in order to borrow other people's money. They understand the power of OPM, which is where, you know, we call the 800 club credit leverage. So what's credit leverage? That is when you're able to do more with less, meaning you keep your cash, okay? Like, you don't want to spend, if it's a business venture where you're not sure if it's going to work out, right? Why would you want to risk all of your capital and all of your cash? So it's how you do more with less. It's how you buy $10 million in real estate, right, instead of $500,000 in real estate, right? And actually, in that, once you get to that number, you know, my opinion is that the bank is taking all the risk. You only put 5 or 10% down, and all the risk is on, the majority of the risk is on them.
I always talk about leveraging in terms of Greek philosophy. I'm going to jump back one more time and talk about Archimedes, who said, if you give me a lever long enough, I'll move the world. And I think that's what you're doing, because you got a pretty damn big lever and you seem to have a good fulcrum. So you're pushing and moving. You've got some great stuff, and I got to ask again in case they missed it. Where can we find you?
Instagram, credit.carl. I live my life through the story on Instagram. So if you don't like me doing fancy things and living my life, and then free credit tips on my timeline so you can get to the 800 Club, don't follow me.
There you go. A little push away. What is next for you? You've been moving forward. You're killing things. What is next for you in terms of achievement?
We'll just continue on the level up. I just had a dinner in Beverly Hills with Tim Story. And man, when you start getting around people that are operating at a higher level, you go, yep, this is possible. There's so many things when you like for Tim, one thing that stood out to me was he gave this example of like the Boston Marathon. And he said, look, 30,000 people that run the marathon, right? How do you separate yourself from the pack? How did the Kenyans dominate the Boston Marathon for all those years, right? And they train differently, okay? So he said they train uphill, they train in the heat, right? They train differently. So by the time they get to Boston, it's easy. The weather's nice, it's flat, and they dominate everyone. And what he was talking about was he told me that he put 40 hours in to a 45-minute speech. I'm going to say that one more time. 40 hours into a 45-minute speech. So when you ask what's next for me, that's what's next. You know, training like the Kenyans and just outworking everyone, doing the research and studying people on, it could be a single word, discipline. How do I know everything about this word, discipline, right? And study it to come up with, it might be for me, the example for me is I study something for an hour to do a 60-second clip on Instagram. I just do, you know? So that's what's next for me.
You can't escape the work. And boy, the way you're doing it in a non-traditional way, that's great. That's great feedback. We're at this point, sadly, where this is the last question for you. If you were going to write something, Carl's gone. He lived to be 160. He changed the world. But now you're 160 years old. You want to write something that you've learned on your journey for others to learn from, grow from, because you're going to share something before you go to the grave. What would that paragraph look like?
Man, I would say that I would want people to get out of average and not be a sheep. Okay, I just don't want people to get caught up in this trap of accepting a life that is less than what they designed, this perfect life. So get out there, test drive some fun things, have some fun, see what it's like to have money. And money is not always about materialistic things. It could be about helping people. You could take all of your riches and help people. So just don't live this life of mediocrity and being a sheep. Don't try to fit inside the box because you only get one life. So just follow me along this journey. I got 102 IQ. I'm not that smart, but I'm going to show you through my journey how I'm not living in the pack.
Somehow your appearance on The Unstoppables has dropped your IQ by 50 points. And I'm not taking blame for that, okay? For more information on accountability coaching or credit repair coaching, head to creditblueprint.net. And if you want to hear success stories from other unstoppable guests, don't forget to subscribe to the Wooditch Network on what, Facebook? Instagram, right? Yes. Where would I be without my intelligence? I have to carry it in the room. See, I got helplines right here. You were fantastic, my friend. And if people don't seek you out, man, they're missing it. Credit Carl. Thank you, babe.
Pleasure was all mine. Thank you.